Kia ora, I'm joining a group of paper crafting YouTubers with an I'm fully booked themed YouTube hop, so make sure you check the links below to see what everyone else has done after looking at this one. So the photo that I have chosen to print here is of my teacher bag and lots of the teacher books that I'm reading at the moment. I am using a paper here from the Flower Shop collection, and I'm going to use one of the new Close to My Heart stencils. These are sort of a card size stencil, but I find them really good for bigger pages and stuff as well. So I'm just going to do this very straight from the containerish, and I chose this stencil just because of the fonty written scriptiness. Now in the basket that you can't probably see because the photo is kind of far away when you're looking in the shot is a whole lot of books and texts, and a lot of them, probably at least 2/3 of them, are related to structured literacy. Now it's probably very obvious to those in the teaching profession or anything to do with para-education or learning support type stuff that at the moment in New Zealand and lots of places around the world too actually, structured literacy has sort of moved into a very forefronted, important kind of role. And so as a teacher who was not trained in structured literacy, I was trained in very much a balanced literacy or whole language type approach, which you do better when you know better. And a lot of the learning that I've been doing since probably since my son actually was diagnosed with dyslexia many years ago, but also it's sort of as a teacher working with kids and not knowing where to go next, or how do I approach this, and what I'm doing is not working, what can I do? And so structured literacy, or the science of reading, is something that I've been sort of delving deeper into over the last 3 or 4 years. And part of this is about phonics, part of it is about sort of making sure you're teaching things in a sequential way, so you're building on what students already know, adding to it, making it, just complicating it as you go rather than it being just randomly picked from somewhere, so you're not building up layers upon layers where students have got something to hang their learning or understanding on. So it's a lot deeper and a lot bigger than that, but just trying to encapsulate it in my own mind as I'm talking about it here as well. But a lot of this is about the reading. So we talk about the science of reading, and while reading is very important for students, so is writing. And structured literacy does have really strong writing connections. When you think about literacy, it's reading, writing, oral language, visual language. It's all of the literacy type things, the communications that we go through. But writing is a whole other ballgame now. The kind of structured language approach they're using this year has got a very strong spelling focus at school. But we've got to connect that with writing. I mean, why learn to spell words unless we're using them in a context or using them for a purpose? So my sort of readings in this basket are a lot about writing, and a big part of that is the writing revolution and the value or the importance of sentences. So we can spell all these words, but let's put them into some sentences and actually have them to make meaning and to share a message. And my argument a couple of years ago was, do we actually need to write? We have computers, we can do videos like I'm doing now, we could do podcasts, we can do all sorts of things and share a message without actually writing it down. But the more that I've been reading and the more I've been understanding is the importance of being able to write, because it helps us to synthesize what we're saying, or shrink it down, or grab the essence of it and write what's important. And if you're taking notes in a lecture, I was always a big handwritten note person, even though I'm a touch typist, just because though you're having to consolidate what someone's saying and put it into your own thinking so that you can sort of grab that back later when you need to recall it or when you're using that. So writing is really important. There's also lots of brain-body connections. Another part of structured literacy is a multi-sensory approach, and writing is another way of engaging the senses within that learning. So it's hugely important and something that I am still learning how to do, and I've been teaching for, if not already, very close to 20 years. So it concerns me that it's new, but it's exciting because I'm actually learning the best way to help our learners and to teach writing, to teach reading, and to teach literacy. So just getting back to what I've done here in the layout, now that I've given you a bit of an education spiel, sorry to those that got really bored and had to fast forward that. Lucky you can do that in YouTube. So I have now cut a whole lot of zip strips. I've also grabbed some stickers from the Flower Shop collection sticker page, and the texture paste has dried through that sort of scripty stencil that I used. I've splattered a little bit of white gloss acrylic as well as some gold or gilt gloss acrylic, and now I'm just sort of adding some double-sided tape on each of these zip strips that weren't already stickers. So that yellow and that pink one that I've already stuck down were from the sticker sheet. So once I've all added those, I'm then going to peel them all off and sort of stick them down to add a little bit of interest in the centre. So when I was sticking down that stencil, I did sort of place it where I wanted it, because I sort of knew that it was a smallish photo, because I'd printed it on my Canon Selfie Square. I'm away from home at the moment, and so it was just a way to print in a... Taking this printer is a lot smaller, it's battery charged rather than my selfie, but the prints are a lot more expensive, so I wouldn't recommend it as an everyday way of printing compared to the normal selfie that I use. But it works really well for travelling and for doing things like this. I really like the prints it comes out with, so if I was doing traveller's notebooks or any big trips and stuff like that, I would definitely be looking at using that instead of some of the other little mini printers that I've got. Anyway, back to the photo. I have wrinkled up the paper edges. I'm now going to use some 3D foam tape to stick this down just to give it a little bit of lift, and there's still some bits that I want to tuck under it. Now there is a bit that after I had put the video together, after I'd taken the photos and put them into Canva so that they'd be the right size and shape, I did actually add another sticker that I'd cut out at the start there to tuck under it, but it still looks fairly similar. It was just it was one of the ones about writing that I've stuck up the top. I just can't remember it off the top of my head at this stage. So now I'm just adding in the journaling about what the content of my fully booked reading type tasks are, and yeah, it's just we talk about fully booked, and it's the books I'm reading. They are what keeps me busy when I am doing teaching, but not teaching as such, and the learning that I am engaging with as a teacher. I often say to my kids at school that I'm always learning too. I'm learning from and with them as well as for them. So this is just a good example of that. So I'm going to use these wood veneer type alpha from Close to My Heart. They are quite light, they're not too chunky, don't stick out too much. They aren't too expensive either, which is awesome. So I've got a few sets of them for when some of the letters run out. And I'm just playing now around with where I'm going to actually put this title, and I do end up putting it right back where I started. So sometimes our first thinking is the best way to go. So I am going to sort of stick that in there, and you'll just see me rearranging that before I find the glue to stick them down. So I'm just using some liquid glass in here. I sort of only have with me, now I have only the double-sided tape, foam tape, and this liquid glass, but they seem to do everything that I need them to do for what I'm doing. So stuck that down, just make sure that's pressed. Now I'm going to add, it felt like it needed something more vertical, so it's sort of got the photo and the strips are all vertical I should say, and then I've got the sticker with the journaling and the title going horizontal, and I felt like I needed a third horizontal thing. So I'm actually going to pierce some holes along under here, and I am going to add in some stitching along under the title and under that photograph. So just this handy dandy paper piercer and a very small sort of foam pad underneath there, but it's worked and done what it needs to, just making sure I've got enough holes there. And then I'm going to pull out some thread, and I think I end up selecting sort of a fluoro-y orange kind of thread there. I played with a few colours, they just didn't feel right or something, so that's why I ended up going for that brighter colour. I did like that blue with it, but it just felt like there was enough blue already, and it just needed something else just to draw your attention. And so here goes the fluoro colour. And so I have put my little handy dandy needle holder somewhere, so luckily there was a needle just sitting in the box for me to thread through, and luckily it threaded straight away as well. So I'm not going to make you watch this whole process, but I'm just going to let you see that starting effect. I'm holding the thread underneath and then just backing over it so that it's going to hold it in place. I love that spotty paper on the other side of the layout as well. It's a fun paper. This Flower Shop collection is pretty cute actually. Luckily it's available all year, and I'm going to enjoy that. So you can see the stitching is all down there in the bottom. I'm now just grabbing some of the different yellow acrylic dots. Again, these are another new aspect of the Close to My Heart offerings, and I just love how they come in the 3 different colour shades, sort of the yellows, you can get them in the blues, you can get them in pinks, greens, all sorts of different shades, and there's sort of 3 different tones of each with 2 sheets, and they've stars, dots and hearts, so it's quite cool having that all together. So thank you again for watching this layout with the I'm Fully Booked Hot. I hope if you've enjoyed this you'll subscribe, and that you will also check the links below for some of the other amazing pages that have been done using the I'm Fully Booked theme. And until next time, which is probably later today because I'm also joining in on Scraptember, thanks for watching.